Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today I'm going to be doing my June TBR. Now if you've been on my channel for a while, you know that I've done roll for the dice before, and sometimes I've given a TBR for readathons, but I haven't really been doing a bunch of TBRs. That might be something new that changes that I will be doing. I think for a long time I didn't like TBRs. I didn't like the stress of them, and I didn't really know how to narrow things down. But what's happened now is that I'm using these readathons as a way to select stuff that maybe I wouldn't have gravitated toward, but also stuff that I'm really interested in. I am looking forward to themed readathons. So like very niche themes. That's what I want to be looking out for. So you'll probably see me participating in a lot of those throughout the rest of this year. I've also had a lot of fun with the more not so much themed readathons, but more so competitive, where there's like literally points given and teams are facing off between each other. I've really enjoyed that as well. But the last two that I did, the last one I did, was the loser, and the one before that I was a loser, and I found out the one that I did this month, our team was the last one to open the basement door, so we probably lost that as well. So I've just been on the losing side. So I think I'm going to gravitate more toward these themed readathons. A lot has happened this month, so you haven't seen a bunch of videos from me other than the On My Radar videos, because I pre-recorded all of those at the beginning of the month. I am going to be shifting things a little bit. So from now on, instead of doing the On My Radar videos weekly, I plan on doing them twice a month. So on the 1st and on the 16th of each month, you should be getting a video with the new releases for the following 2 weeks of the month. I also now have a job. I started the job as a call-in person for when people were sick, and now they've officially put me on the schedule for Tuesdays and Thursdays afternoons, which means that now that my schedule is more solid, I can better manage my time. I also finished writing an entire draft of my book, which means that now I have to revise the whole sucker, self-edit it, and then send it to my editor, and I plan on doing that by the 15th of June. So it's going to be very hectic. Am I actually going to have time to read these books? If I prioritize correctly, probably not, but I'm going to try it anyway. I'm also trying to eat better, and that means cooking my meals. I made eggplant today. I'm a picky eater. The fact that I even ate eggplant and like willingly went and purchased one and put it in my mouth is just astounding. But we'll see how that goes. I'm hoping eating right is going to give me more energy and less like physical pain, because I do get back pain and muscle aches and stuff like that. Also, my third niece was born, so that was really exciting. And I took a trip to North Carolina, got to see my brother at Fort Bragg. He was there for 6 weeks doing a training. I do have a video of the museum tour that I did while I was there, so you can check that out on my channel if you're interested in like an army museum. And I got to see my sister, who I hadn't seen in several years, and we like went to the lake and stuff like that. So there's some short videos that you can watch if you want to see kind of what I've been up to this month. But that's not really why you're here. You're here about my June TBR, so I'm going to get into that. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now that sadly there's not really, I don't know that any of these other than one is LGBT, which sucks because it is Pride Month, but I don't read in order to tick off a box of like, oh, this is the themed month for Pride, so I'm going to only read LGBT books during Pride and then not read them throughout the rest of the year. I read diversely throughout the year, so I don't feel bad that I only have one book on this list that I had to intentionally find and put on it, because I was like, I don't have one. Like, I want to read one during this month, and it also fit the prompt. And it was the hardest prompt for me to do, so I was like, okay, good. We have one. But if you're looking for like Pride Recs, it's not going to be in this video, unfortunately. But you can check out any of my previous wrap-ups, and I'm sure there will be like 2 or 3 that are LGBT+, in any of my given wrap-ups. So, what am I doing? I'm going to do Adventure-a-thon this month, and I'm not choosing not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 paths. Why? Because the prompts were so stinking good and themed, and I like it when it's more niche, because I have less options, and I liked the themed thing. I want to kind of get into a more themed version of this channel, so each month might have a different theme. I've always wanted to do like a pirate mermaid type theme in the summer, and luckily this had a pirate option, so I was like, yes! I also want to do like a sci-fi spacey thing. I'll probably try to do something like that in January, and I might actually create my own readathon for that. So if you like sci-fi, space opera type stuff, might want to stick around, and if you want to volunteer to be like a co-host, let me know, and I might throw something like that together, because I think it could be a lot of fun. All right, so the rules with this is that you have to pick 4 books for each of your paths that you choose. There's also side quests that you can do, but you don't have to do any of those. And if you choose to do more than one path, you have to do them to completion before you can do the next path. So you can't skip around from like Sovereign to Mage. You can't go back and forth. So I have strategically placed the books in my TBR so that I can read them in like this exact order throughout the month. If there are additional books that I read, they're going to be audiobooks. They're not going to be physical books. I'm not going to have time to read no more physical books than what I have on this little stack over here. I made it a little bit simpler for me in that I am not going to be doing any of the side quests unless, like I said, it's like an audiobook that happens to fit the side quest. So I'm going to be doing the bare minimum for each of these routes, and I've chosen Sovereign, Pirate, Assassin, and Mage. If you want to join in on this readathon, I will link down below a link for the announcement video so you can check it out. This one also has rewards. So you could be entered into a drawing for like every 500 points that you acquire, you get an entry, and you could win like 30 bucks to get some books. And I have not been buying books this year, so I would love to win. I would love to win. All right, so I'm going to take you through the Sovereign route first. And so I had to pick from 2 prompts. I choose one of the tools. And so I chose Throne. And the prompt is to read a book with a throne or a seat on the cover. I don't think anyone else is going to have the same kind of throne that I chose, but maybe they will after seeing this video. And that's going to be the Little Mermaid. She is on a shell. It is a seat. She's sitting on it, therefore it is a seat. And it's under the sea. What else are they going to have a throne made out of than like a huge clamshell? So I feel like it works either way. So this looks like a hefty classic, but it's only really 34 pages or something like that for The Little Mermaid. So I'm not going to be reading the entire collection. I'm just going to be reading the 34 pages of the short story. Then I have skills, and for the skills category, you have 3 options that you can choose between, and I chose delegation, which is a random selection. So at first I did a poll pick between 2 books with my best friend. She chose but then I realized that I have a library book club book that I need to read. And it totally works for this as well, because the way that my book club works is that at the beginning of each 3 months, all of the participants get like a little booklet, and we have 3 options for each month to choose between, and the one that's voted on the most gets picked for that month. So the one that was voted on the most by the people that are in the book club with me for this month happens to be The Family Plot. So this is what I'm going to be reading. This is about a girl who lives on this like mysterious island. It's very isolated, and her brother goes missing like a decade ago. They never find out where he is, where he went, what happened to him. But then, years later, they're back at this mansion on the island, and they wind up uncovering her brother's body in her father's grave. So, someone had to put him there. Who did it? I watched Gavin's like 2-hour-long video of him solving an Agatha Christie like murder mystery. So I would really like to try something creative like that as well. So I think what I'm going to do is do a vlog style of me trying to solve why the brother is there and who did it for this book. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I'm super interested. And if you want to play along with me, we could almost do like a little collab thing where we're all reading it and trying to solve it and see who gets it right. I just think that would be so much fun. So that is going to be what I read for delegation. which is the skills. And then for quest, you have two. You have the starting quest, and then you have the final quest, so you have to complete both of them. And I'm guessing you have to read them in order, too, because one's start, one's finish. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm reading these suckers in order. And so the starting quest is a book that features royalty. I want to start this month off easy. I don't want to make it super hard on myself. I'm not going to get into like a very dense fantasy for the beginning. So what I'm going to do is this dystopian romance. And that's going to be The Heir by Kiera Cass. So this is like the, depending on how you count up the series, it's the 5th book in the series. But it's the first book in this spin-off duology. So America already found her boo in the selection series, and now it's time for her daughter to do the same thing. She's got like 34, 35 suitors, and she's got to choose who she wants to wed, but she doesn't want to marry any of them, but it's her duty to do so. So who is she going to choose? I don't know. If you like The Bachelor and you want to see a royal going through the Bachelor process in a futuristic world, like our world, but futuristic, then this one might be a good one for you. I know that a lot of people hated America, and even more people hated her daughter, so I liked America. I don't know if I'll like the daughter or not. She might be too much for me. I did read like 50 pages of this at one point, but it has been quite a while. But yeah, that's going to be my royalty book. And then we follow that up with the final quest, which is Coronation Day. And I had to search it to see if this has a coronation in it. And it does. How convenient. And that is going to be The Crown by Kiera Cass. So this is the second book in that duology, or the 6th and final book of the series of the selection world. So this one is where she has to actually like pick the final suitor, and then of course she goes through her coronation, and I guess she's like crowned queen or something like that. So I guess how they do it is their rulers rule for maybe like 20 years, and then they pass it on to the next person. I'm not really quite sure how their ascension works, but I did look it up. She does go through a coronation, and I'm guessing there's going to be like a marriage that takes place in this too. So I needed to have some light, fluffy romances in here, so this is definitely going to be what that is. So if you can see, these are the books that I chose for the Sovereign route. Now we get to go on to the next route, which is the one that I was most excited about. So I have a lot of shorter, quick reads for the first week that I'll try knocking all of those out in the first week. And so then the second week, I plan on doing this pirate route. I am going to still be reading these books as I'm reading the other ones, but they're longer, so they're going to take me more time. So I won't finish them until the second week. So the first thing for pirate is the tools, and for tools, I chose Ship, a book with a ship or boat on the cover, and I have The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. So sadly enough, I don't know where I put the book. I always take the covers off before I read them. I'm thinking it's in my car. I'm thinking I was reading it in the car and then like put it in the back seat or something, and it's still in there. So I'll get to go check when my husband gets home. But yeah, I have it somewhere. I'm only like 150 pages into it, so I've still got a good 300 pages left to go in this sucker. It's very good, but it's very like high fantasy feeling, even though technically this is set like in the past in our world, and it's in the Arabian Sea, which I didn't realize until I picked up this book and looked at the map, that I spent like 4 years of my life in the Arabian Sea. And didn't even know it, because we didn't call it that. We called it the Gulf of Aden. So this is about a woman who is kind of retired from being a pirate, and then this other woman is like, hey, my granddaughter has like gone off with this bad guy, or she's gotten kidnapped by him or whatever. I want you to get her back. I'm going to pay you all this money. And so this retired pirate's like house is kind of crumbling, and so she needs this money, so she decides she will go on it, which means she has to reunite with her old crew, and then there's a lot of like mishaps that happen along the way. There's lots of times where she starts off on one leg of the journey and then she winds up having to go like find an old connection in order to do the next step. She gets involved in things that she wasn't planning, like freeing some people that were arrested from her ship at the very opening of the book. But also, her daughter's life has been threatened by this old woman. So I don't know if the old woman really wants to mess with this woman or not. I don't know. But if you want a book that's like a fantasy feel, and it's supposed to have like some magical creatures and stuff, I haven't got to the part where there's like giant octopuses or anything like that, any sea monsters just yet. But I'm excited to get there. And yeah, this does have a slightly older protagonist, like I guess in her 40s. So if you've been wanting to read a book with a protagonist that's a little bit older, then this one might be a good part to go. The reading is very easy for me to get into, though it is more dense than what I typically read. It does read like high fantasy adult. It reminds me a lot, funny enough, of the Count of Monte Cristo writing style, which I see the Count of Monte Cristo as being like very modern feeling almost, but it has that like rich language of the past, but just the way that the sentences are structured makes it so easy to read. And so I feel like this is the same way. It's got that old time feel, but it's still very accessible. So I'm excited to finally finish that one. I've been reading on it for like the past 2 months here and there, just kind of like nighttime, 10-20 minutes reading a little bit. So I'll be happy to finally actually like finish the book. Then we go on into skills, and I chose Sailing, which is a book set at sea. And what better one to choose for that than The Raft by S.A. Bowden? So this one is a girl who's like supposed to go spend time or whatever in the summer, I believe, with her aunt, but then she decides she's going to go off somewhere else on her own anyway. She doesn't feel like she needs a chaperone or to be babysat. I think she might be like 15 or 16 years old. And so she hires this guy to like take her, I think it's like to the Midway Island or something. I think her parents are in the military and they're like stationed on Midway. I'm not really sure, but she wants to like, I don't know, she wants to go somewhere. And so she's trying to travel there. And then, of course, the ship crashes. She is the solo survivor. And so she's drifting a sea on a raft. They should make a movie out of this. I have read 2 other books by this author, which was The Compound and forgot what the second one was called, but it was the follow-up to The Compound, and it was very good. She writes some dark stuff, and it's just so much fun. So yeah, it says Robin lives with her family on the Midway Atoll, a group of islands in the middle of the Pacific. After visiting her aunt on Hawaii, Robbie is left to return home alone. Catching a cargo flight at the last minute, all systems are go until the plane hits nasty weather. And then the plane goes down, and suddenly Robbie's in the water, fighting for her life. Max, the only other survivor... Oh, so there is one other person. The only other survivor pulls her onto a raft, and that's when the real terror begins. They have no water. Their only food is a bag of Skittles. There are sharks. There is an island. But there is no sign of help on the way. Survival has never been so dizzy, so frightening. And one question remains: how long can they survive? I did read like the first 50 pages or something of this, so that's why I thought there was something with her, like she was not supposed to be there, or no one knew that she was gone, so no one was gonna be looking for her. So I don't know, I might have got some details twisted, but I read the blurb, so now you know what it's actually about. And we'll move on to the next book, but I definitely think I'll be able to absolutely just fly through that one. Then we have the Starting Quest, which is a book featuring pirates, and so I went with a pirate book, which is going to be Black Hearts. I got this one a long time ago when I met the author. The second one is called like Soul Stealer or something like that. I'm not quite sure, but or Soul Bones, I don't know. Black Souls is the second book. Anyway, this is like a Blackbeard retelling, and it is a young adult. So it says, Edward Teach Drummond, son of one of Bristol's richest merchants, has returned from a year at sea to find his life in shambles. Betrothed to a girl he doesn't love and sick of the high society he was born into, Teach dreams of returning to the vast ocean he calls home. There's just one problem: convincing his father to let him leave and never come back. Following her parents' deaths, Anne Barrett is left penniless, though she's barely worked a day in her life, and takes a job as a maid in the home of Master Drummond. Lonely days stretch into weeks, and Anne longs for escape. How will she ever realize her dream of sailing the Curacao, where her mother was born, when she's stuck in England? From the moment Teach and Anne meet, they set the world ablaze. Drawn together by a shared desire for freedom, but kept apart by Teach's father, their love is as passionate as it is forbidden. Faced with an impossible choice, Teach and Anne must decide whether to chase their dreams and go, or follow their hearts and stay. So yeah, forbidden romance, some pirate stuff. This does have to do with Blackbeard. So the pirate Blackbeard was known for striking fear into the hearts of even the bravest sailors. But once he was just a young man who dreamed of abandoning his rigid life to chase the adventure far away lands. Nothing could stop him until he met the one girl who would change everything. So it does have pirates. It's about Blackbeard. So yeah, really excited about that one. And I believe that's just a duology too. So if you want something that's kind of I thought that one was more of a fantasy, but it's not, because it said England. So if you want more of like an old-timey with pirates, might be a good duology to try. And then for the final quest is to read a book about a great treasure or fortune. So this one spoils a little bit of this book, but this book is a chunker. It's over 1,000 pages, so I don't really mind spoiling a little bit of it. And that is going to be The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. So this is a reread for me. I had this as required reading in high school. However, I accidentally, unknowingly read the unabridged version, and it was 500 pages, which is why I didn't realize that unabridged or the abridged. I read the abridged version, the shorter one. Anyway. So there was a lots of bits of this book that I just don't know yet, but there's also a lot of it that's very familiar. So I'm really excited to read this again. This is something that is I don't know if you would call it a cult classic, because it's not like a horror book. So I don't know if that applies. But this is a book that, yes, it's a classic in the sense that it was written in like the 1800s or whatever, but also it shows up in so much pop culture that you don't even realize. There are shows that are like based off of this, but given a modern twist with different characters. Like the show Revenge is based off of this. There are so many shows, so many books that take inspiration from this book. And it is one of my all-time favorites, classic or otherwise. There's just so much in here. It's so good. The writing is very accessible, especially considering that this was written in like the 1800s. I really love it. Now, this is going to be like my one cheat during this readathon, because this sucker is 1,000 pages long, but also I am kind of following along with the way that Nicole from Dusty Book Sniffers is doing it. So you're supposed to read in 10 chapter chunks, which is the way that it was originally published. Now, I'm not going to be counting the individual sections the way that it was originally published for the readathon. I'm not going to be trying to give myself a bunch of extra points by doing it that way. However, there is a provision for you to be able to DNF a book once you've got to 25% of the book, or if it gets to the point where it's at the end of the readathon and you can't finish it, you can go ahead and count it. So I'm going to be a little bit sly here, because this is during the second path, not the fourth path, but I'm going to do this because I'm doing it anyway. I'm going to try to get to the 500 page mark. I am on page 116 right now, so that's still going to be me reading 400 pages, which is bigger than the average book, so I don't feel bad getting points for reading this sucker. If you put in your actual pages, I'm not going to boost myself in any way. I'll put in what I actually read, but I am going to soft DNF this so that I can move on to the next path, because I don't want to get ahead of the group. Right now I'm super behind, so I'm going to catch up this month. That's the plan for the Count of Monte Cristo. But this story is a story of revenge. The guy is gotten put wrongfully into a prison for being a traitor. He was framed by someone who was jealous of him because he was 19 years old and he was about to start to be like the commander of a ship. And so the guy was jealous, so he gets him thrown in jail. This is also on the eve of his wedding, so he doesn't even get married to the love of his life before he's captured. And so he winds up finding this Abby in the prison, and they're both formulating an escape plan. That's kind of all that happens in the first 100 pages. What I will say is that the Abbey has been telling people for years when they come and visit, and they're like some of the overseers for the prison, and they're like, what can we do to improve your life? All this other kind of stuff. And he's like, well, I have this treasure that I know where it's located, and I'll give you like all these millions and millions of dollars if you'll break me free. And so what's going to happen, I'm only going to spoil this one element, is that he is going to wind up revealing the secret to the main character in here. And the thing is that the treasure is real. So that's the spoiler that I'm giving you, is that there is a real treasure. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because that is the inciting incident. It might be like 250 pages into the book, but that is what sets off the book. So once he has this money, he goes back to where he was from. And like people have died since he's been gone because he was locked up for several years. At the point where I'm at in the book, he's already been in prison for 6 years. And so he wants to get revenge. So now he has all this wealth. So he disguises himself as like this count. He basically makes up his own title. He has all this money to throw around. He's like the Great Gatsby of this time. And he's going to enact his revenge on everyone who put him there and made him miss out on a big portion of his life. And I absolutely love it. There's some like poisoning stuff that happens in here. It's just such a freaking good book. So I'm excited to get to that halfway mark in this. And that, my friends, is, oh my goodness. So, these are the books that I'm reading for the pirate path. Alright, I'm running out of room on my shelf to stack these. I'm going to have to put this decoration down so that I can stack these over here. Oh, alright. So next up is we have the Assassin's Path. Really excited about this one because there is a series that I have had on my shelves for years. I wanted it for several Christmases, and then my husband finally got it for me for Christmas, the whole set. And that is going to be the Throne of Glass series, and you can see some missing slots. Why? Because those are going on this Assassin's thing. So, the first thing is tools, and so I chose a dagger, and so I had to pick a book with a dagger on the cover, and I went with the Assassin's Blade. Now, you might be seeing her like blades and be like, well, those are kind of too long to be a dagger. Well, if you look very, very closely, right here, it's like sideways, there is a dagger on her pants. like an actual dagger, like hooked there in a holster. So there is a dagger on this cover. So this is a reread for me. I've already read this one before. However, it's been several years. I don't remember all the details. And my friend was like, hun, you cannot read this thing first. It will spoil some stuff for book 6. And I'm like, well, I've already read it. But I am good with going in a more chronological way. So this is going to be very interesting because, again, I'm not going to be reading the whole book during this readathon. So, and they were published as individual stories, so they are separate on Goodreads, so I can do that according to the group rules. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the stories where they would naturally fit. So my friend gave me a list of like how to put them in. So I'll be reading like half of them this month, and then the other half I'll read after I get done, I guess, with book 6, so that I don't remind myself of these things, and I can do a kind of guessing game, which I want to be doing with some of these other books. I'm going to do some like maybe some theories videos where I predict what I think is going to happen as I'm reading, but then also predict what I think will happen in the next book. I think that could be a lot of fun. So look forward to like a vlog style, really fun series thing going on with this. And I don't know if I told you in this take or in the old take, I can't remember, I don't think I told you in this take, so I'm going to revisit this one real quick. So I saw Gavin's video about Agatha Christie, and he was trying to solve, like, the mysteries. So I want to try to solve the mystery in this book and make a video of me doing that. So that's the one thing I might not have included, so I'm including it now. But yeah, so The Assassin's Blade is a collection of novellas. Some of them are prequel novellas. That tell you about Selena and how she became known as like this big, huge assassin. And it also gives you insights to one of the characters that's mentioned in the first book, but that's not seen in the first book, which is Sam, which is one of the reasons why I'm like, yeah, go ahead and read the sucker first, because then you'll know who Sam is. But, yeah, this is just a bunch of different short stories. I don't really want to get into any of them. It just kind of sets up how she is, who she is, the assassin guild that she was raised by, and some other characters who do take some sort of role in the rest of the series. Then we have skills, and I chose poisons. So a book about poisons or poisoners. And I'm going with Gravebriar by Casey L. Bond. So I got to see Casey at a author signing that we were both doing. And so she signed my book, and it's so cute. It's got a map inside and everything. So, but this one is about a witch, and most of the witches are like green witches. So they deal with plants in order to like help others, create medicines, all of that sort of thing. This witch is accused of poisoning some dude, and so she wants to prove her innocence. But the problem is that she's not a green witch like everyone thinks that she is. She is actually a poisoner. So she knows how to combine ingredients to become lethal, which definitely does not help her case of not poisoning this dude. That's really all I know. So witchy, poisony, let's do it. And then we have our quest. Read a book featuring assassins. So I'm going to continue the series, of course, and I'm going to be reading Throne of Glass. So this, a lot of people will argue, like, yeah, she's an assassin, but it's more of a tell and not so much show when it comes to Selena. However, there's a bunch of assassins in this story who are all competing to become the king's assassin. And so she is actually freed from the salt mines where she's been a prisoner in order to be like I guess either I can't remember if it's the prince who does it. It might be the prince who does it, or it might be the king who does it. It's been several years since I read this. And so anyway, she gets freed in order to be like the king or prince's champion, which is the one who they're kind of like putting their money on, I guess you would say, to be the winner. And no one's really known her identity either as being like this assassin. And there's some other royal figures that show up, and there's some like magical things that start taking place around the castle, and like the castle is made of glass. So yeah, an assassin book with a competition. So yeah, this is going to be a reread for me as well. I might do audio, but I might not. I might go slow. I might deface these books. I might write in them because I know I like them and they're big and long. So I might write in them. We'll see. But yeah, I think I'll be doing some theories videos. I think that could be a lot of fun, and definitely something I want to take this channel in the direction of. And then we have the final quest for the assassins, and that is to read a book featuring a corrupt leader or government being overthrown. The first thing I thought of was Snow, and so I was like, I could read the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. However, he wasn't really, I don't think he's the leader in that book. I think he's just kind of getting into the game world. But I don't know that he's not like President Snow yet. That's his origin story, but that's not the story. So I was like, okay, then I'm not going to do Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. What other book do I know of where there's like a corrupt leader or someone that's overthrowing the government? And it took me a second, but then I remembered. Defiant! by CJ Redwine. This is going to be a reread for me as well, but I have not read the second or third book in the series, so I'm rereading in order to continue. And I really enjoyed this. I liked the romance. I think there is a slight age gap, though, which I didn't have a problem with at the time, but I might have a problem with now, because I think she's 16 and he's 19, and he's like her father's apprentice, but then the father goes missing, and so she's like, where is my dad? And then she starts becoming suspicious of their commander, which kind of acts as like their king. There's also like this dragon type monster that comes out of the earth. So it definitely gets some fantasy stuff happening in here. And there's some murder that takes place in here too. Like, this leader is the absolute worst. But I also really, really liked the romance in this story. So hopefully the age thing won't bother me. Hopefully it won't. I'm just like, I mean, I've been reading The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, and it has a similar thing with like a 4 or 5 year age gap thing. And I'm just like, one's an adult, one's a minor. I don't like that. But this one is in a fantasy world, so fantasy worlds are a little bit easier for me to get on board, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It's dark. It's YA, but it's dark. Alright, so these are the books that I'm reading for the Assassin's Path. And then we get on to the last path of the day, which is going to be Mage. So for Tool, I chose a wand, and I have to read a book with a magic item on the cover, which I'm going to do an 8-ball. And so this is going to be Cursed Luck. I checked this out from the library. So the other day I went into the library and I was like, you know what? I want to discover what my true reading taste is. And in order to do that, I just kind of have to like trust myself and just kind of look through the books and pick up whatever looks interesting to me, not necessarily that's been hyped by anybody else, so that I can figure out what I really like beyond what BookTube tells me to like. So this is one of the ones, The Spine caught my eye, and I was like, okay, I got to look into that. So I did. And it sounds very good. So this woman is part of a family of witches, and they uncurse items. And so there's this one item that a lot of people are wanting to have the curse lifted off of. It's like a special item, and lots of different people are trying to get it. And then one of the guys that she winds up running into is like wanting this item uncursed for whatever reasons. And I think there's going to be a romance with this. This is a series. This is the first book in the series. And I'm excited to read it. It also is not super, super long. So, yeah. I need to renew it from the library, though, because I've already had it for, like, over a week. So, oh, man. So, I might have to go a little out of order and cheat and read the books on this path sooner because of the library hold. The only reason why it's at the end of the path instead of the beginning of the path is because of this next book. So I might cheat. But also this next book is a reread for me as well, so I've already read it before. And so the next one is going to be Skills, and I chose Evocation and Elements on the cover. So you have to look a little bit closely. But Crown of Midnight has this like mist. So that's an air element, or it's fire. I'm not really sure what this element is supposed to be, but there's like smoke, some sort of smoke, either fire smoke, magic smoke, some kind of smoke. So we're counting that as an element. So Crown of Midnight, the games are over, and Selena is kind of finding her footing with the new dynamics. There is a love triangle that's happening between her and the prince, and her and Kale, or Kale, whatever you're supposed to call him. Yeah, I think I always call him like Kale or something. I don't remember. I might have called him Kale. I probably called him Kale. I don't know. I probably called him Kale. Anyway, there's a love triangle, and I'm just going to tell you right now, I liked Dorian from book 1, and I guess I was like shipping that at the time, but when I got to book 2, I was definitely shipping her with Chaol. So, I read these books for the romance, not the fantasy, okay? I'm just going to be for real here. I read them for the romance. The fantasy is just a plus. This is also one of the books where people are like, okay, we're in like the 3rd book now, and she's not wanting to kill anyone. Because in this one, she's supposed to be going and killing people, but she's not going and killing them. She's like faking their deaths. So slight spoiler on that, but this series has been around for a while. I think y'all kind of already know. That's one of the criticisms, like, she's supposed to be this big assassin, but she doesn't want to kill anyone. So, anyway, I'm excited to reread it and then finally get into Heir of Fire, which I had read like 200 pages of, and then I had stopped. Because I'm a very slow reader, and Queen of Shadows had come out, and then there was like 3 more books after that, so I was like, I'm never going to catch up, so I just quit, and I was like, I will wait until all the books are out in the series, and then I can binge them, so that's what I'm doing. Alright, next up, we have the starting quest, read a book featuring magic, and for that, I went with Child of Light by Terry Brooks. So Terry Brooks is a popular, well-known author. However, I have not read from them before. I did get the Shannara Chronicles book at one point, but then I realized it was like actually the 2nd or 4th book in the series. I did watch the 1st season of the Shannara Chronicles on TV, and I really, really enjoyed that show. So I have high hopes that I'm going to like this world and like their creativity and stuff. But this is about a girl who is in a prison with a bunch of other people, and when you age out, you go from like the young adult prison to the adult prison, which is supposed to be so much worse. When I read that, my eyes were just like, because I wrote a book, I published it and I've unpublished it since, and it will be published again at some point, but I wrote a book where it was like that, where the main character is this magical person, but everyone has told her that she is schizophrenic, so she's been in a psych ward for like the last 13 years, and so she's about to age out into the adult, and so she doesn't want to go to the adult side, because when you get transferred there from being like a juvenile, you're pretty much stuck there. You're probably never going to get out, and she wants to get out. And so this made me think of that, and I'm like, I like that dynamic of being like, what am I going to do? I don't want to be stuck like this. And so anyway, so she's about to age out, and then she winds up running into some fae, and the fae tell her that she's one of them, and she's like, but I don't look anything like you. How could I possibly be one of you? And so again, another parallel to the story that I wrote, which is where she's this magical person, but the medicines that she's been taking have been like disguising her magic, and so she doesn't know that she's magical. She believes what they tell her. She believes that she is schizophrenic, because there are moments where she does things that you couldn't explain by the natural world, and then she's just kind of convinced that it's just her seeing things. But also the psych ward is like a magical refuge, so some of the people do have actual mental illnesses, some of them are magical with mental illnesses. So yeah, I'm excited to see how this one is similar in ways and how it's very different, because it's not the same story at all, but I think it's going to reignite the love for my own story and make me want to continue it. So I'm excited. And then we have the last final quest, and that is going to be to read a 2023 debut. And so this is the one where I was like, okay, this is the witch category, so I wanted to read something witchy, and it needed to be a debut. And then I was thinking about the fact that it's June, and I didn't have any LGBT plus books, and I was like, is it possible that I have a 2023 debut witchy book that's LGBTQ plus? And I did. So I was so excited. And that is going to be This Spells Disaster. So I just printed it off on the sheet. This spells disaster. And so this one is about two women, and the one has had a huge crush on the other one. Then they wind up having to work together for something or another. And I think they're fake dating for some reason. So they're like fake dating. But the one girl is not so great with magic, and she believes that she has accidentally given the other one a love potion, which is forbidden in the magical world. You don't want to mess with people's feelings. And so as they start to get closer and closer, she's like, is this the potion that's doing this? Or does she actually like me? And so what she's trying to do is actually give the girl all the reasons why they shouldn't be together in order to break the love spell, but all it really does is makes the other person like her even more. So this concept made me think of the X-Hex, the second book. Can't remember what the second book was called off the top of my head. I can't remember. The Kiss Curse, because they wind up like bumping into this shelf and this like sparkly pink dust goes over them, and they're convinced that it's a love potion because they start making out immediately even though they hate each other, but it's not a love potion. So yeah, that made me think of this. I love when like books are uniquely their own thing, but they also give me elements of other stories that I've loved and enjoyed or that I've written. It's just kind of like, this is cool. Someone else likes the same sort of thing. So I really like to read them. So yeah, I'm really excited about This Spells Disaster. So there you go. Those are the books that I'm going to be reading for the Mage path. And if you need a close-up refresher of the prompts that I chose in particular, if you're wanting to do these prompts and these paths as well, I'm just going to quickly show you on the sheet. And these are just the ones that I chose, so I didn't put the other options on here. It might be backwards for you, though. I don't know. But yeah, those are the 16 books on my TBR. If I find some like audio adaptations or whatever for these books, I could totally finish them, but I might try to read them all physically, and if that's the case, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do all of them, but it's going to be a fun time. So let me know down below which track was the most interesting for you. Like, which one did you like the prompts for the best? Was there one that you were like, oh, I know exactly what I would read for that prompt? Let me know. And again, if there's one of these that you want me to do some sort of like in-depth video for, let me know that as well. And I will see you all in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share with friends, and I'll see you all later. Bye!